evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is so good to see you here in the virtual space. I am excited about tonight because tonight is our second installment of our virtual health talks that we are doing. For those of you who don't know, here at our church, the Beacon Light SDA Church here in Kansas City, known as the Light KC, we have been focused on being out of the box all year. But in particular, for this month of July, we have been focusing on our health. This is our Health is Wealth Month, where we have so many different things going on. We have different worship services that are centered around health. We have these virtual health talks that we're doing every single Wednesday of the month, July 5th, 12th, and 19th. And then we're going to conclude the entire month with a community health day on the 29th of July, where we're going to have health professionals come out to our church. You're going to get health screens. We're going to have different workshops, different exercise classes, all these different things for free. Come on, somebody. Somebody should have put in the chat for free. But that's what we're going to be doing because we are being very conscious and mindful about our health. Listen, if you have been mindful and just joining us with this initiative, go ahead and just put it in the chat. Health is wealth. If you have been following us, if you have been saying, you know what, I have been being intentional with my health, I've been following our goals, I've been doing all of these things, I just need you to put in the chat, health is wealth, because we believe here at Beacon Light in our community that health is so important for us. We recognize that many of those who look like us in particular, we are dying rapidly of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, all of these things. And we are saying, no, we are not going to allow these devices to kill us. Rather, we're going to do whatever we can to protect this body temple that God has given us. Listen, I see you, Brian. Brian has joined us tonight. He says health and wealth. Brian has been on board all month. Good to see you tonight, Brian. I'm so glad that you're on tonight. Well, listen, friends of mine, I need us to do something very important right now. You know, I ask you to do this every week, and I'm going to ask you this for as long as I am around. I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to share this stream experience with somebody else. For those of you watching on Facebook, those of you watching on YouTube, you need to go ahead and just press that little share button and let somebody know that we're here tonight. Go ahead and text somebody and let them know we got our virtual health talks going on right now. This is important because I care about your life. If there is somebody in your life that you care about, if there is somebody life means something to you, then you need to let them know to tune into our virtual health talks, man. We got an amazing discussion for you all tonight, amazing conversation where you can be are going to be able to engage with us virtually in the chat. We just want you to drop your questions if you have any questions in the chat, so that we can answer them to the best of our ability. But before we even go into that, I want to let you know, I want to remind you, I've alluded to this already tonight, that we have different health goals that we're trying to follow all throughout the month of July. Listen, we believe that part of us, excuse me, part of us being able to operate at maximum capacity in our health is to do these things, right? We want to be able to give up some fried foods, soda, and go meatless on this month. I know somebody's listening, talking back to me like, really? I got to do all that? Yes, yes, that's our charge for this month. We also want you to walk for 30 minutes a day at least 3 times a week. Now, that's not walking, to your desk at work and back. That's not walking to the refrigerator and back to the couch. No, no, no. That is intentionally going for a walk. Walk outside in nature. Walk on a treadmill. Do something, right? But at least do it for 30 minutes a day, at least 3 times a week. I want you to go ahead and get a gym membership. Listen, Planet Fitness, you can get a gym membership for the low, like $10 or something like that. Go ahead and get a gym membership. That investment is important in your life. And we also need you to schedule a health screen and or mental health appointment. All right. We need you to go talk to somebody, get yourself checked out, get your mind, your body checked out, make sure everything's in order or intact. We need you to go do that. And then we need you to cut down on the screen time and read at least 2 books. Listen, many of us like to just go electronic and pull out our phones and pull out our tablets and computers, and we like to say, "Oh, I'm reading from there." Listen, I'm a little bit of old school. I grew up in the era where Mama said you can't have no electronic device. Well, when I was growing up, we didn't have none of those devices. We would just had to watch TV. Mama said, "No, you can't watch TV. Go in your room and read a book." Oh, I wish I had somebody who could just put in the chat, read a book. That's the generation I grew up in, and I need us to know that hey, reading is fundamental. Reading is beneficial for your health. It can stretch your mind. It can pour into your mind. Listen, so we want you all to be following these things. Listen, I see Brian put in the chat. I've gone without soda, and I've also walked. Good for you, Brian. I'm happy that you are following through with those commitments. I am excited about what you're doing, man. And for the rest that are tuned in, I'm excited about what God is doing in your life in regards to your health. And I promise you, when the end of the month comes around, when the 31st of the month comes in August and we transition into August 1st, I promise for those that have been faithful in this, you're going to see the rewards and you're going to see the benefits on the other side. And I just can't wait to just be able to talk about those things and share those things with you all. But listen, everybody. Tonight is a amazing night. I'm excited about tonight because tonight's virtual health talk comes from someone who is very near and dear to our church community, someone who pretty much grew up in our church, somebody that we all know. Right, and they're going to be talking about us, and we're going to have an amazing conversation simply about music, movement, and mental health, being intentional with your anatomical movement. Okay, I want to just bring on. I'm gonna bring her on the screen, and we're gonna see how she's doing. She's gonna further tell you a little bit about herself. I want to introduce you all, reintroduce rather, Sister Rhonda Penny. Rhonda, how are you doing on this evening?
Hello, hello, hello. I am well. I am well. Thank you. How you doing? How are you?
Man, I am doing well. I am excited to be here in the virtual space with you
Same.
for us to just dive into this thing tonight. I'm super excited. But before we go into our conversation, can you just let everybody know how are you doing? Let people know a little bit about you. I know many people may know who you are, but for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your passions. What do you do? Why it's important to you that what you do. Just go ahead and share a little bit about yourself to us.
So, yes, my name is Rhonda Penny. A lot of you may have known me as Rhonda Wallace, but I'm a grown up now, y'all.
All
So,
right now.
I'm Mrs. Penny now because I'm a grown up. So, so yes, I have been within the Seventh Day Adventist Church all of my life. So, I'm so excited that this is something that you all are doing and wanting to implement within the church, not just the church members, but you're also reaching out into the community. So I think that that's absolutely awesome, awesome. Health and wellness has been something near and dear to me all of my life. So I'm excited to now show this aspect that God has shared with me with you all. So I'm really excited. A little bit about my background. I have been in the health and wellness field for a little over 10 years now. I received my degree in personal training, and I just became a connoisseur for just everything health and wellness since then. I've just obtained so many different certifications, completed so many different courses, and I just have bottled up all that information to be able to take a different approach to our health and wellness. And so God has really walked with me throughout the journey and has just opened up my mind. And I just built upon the information that I was once given and was just able to blossom into something new. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. And I'm happy that you mentioned about reading books because I noticed that I got in the habit of starting a book and then starting another book and then starting another book. And I was like, wait a minute.
Oh no,
I'm on
oh no,
chapter
oh
one of
no.
all of these books. I need to zone in. So it's like, wait a second. I get really, really excited about my book reading. So
Mm,
I'm happy I get to do this journey with you guys and refocus throughout that.
all
So, a
right,
little
all right.
bit about what I would be talking with you guys today is about intentional anatomical movement, where that came from, and where it's planning on going, and how we can now have a new perspective about our health and our wellness. And let's see what the benefits come of that, right? Because our minds are so powerful. Just with a simple thought, we can rewire and change so much within our bodies. So, a little bit more
So
about
now,
that. Okay, go
No,
ahead.
no,
Yeah,
no,
because
no, hold
I'll
on,
just
hold on,
go. What?
hold on. Let's reel it in, right? So I remember this was maybe a number of months back, right?
Uh-huh.
And you first came to me and you started talking about this intentional anatomical movements and worship, and that was the first time I heard anybody talk about that, and I had no idea what you were talking about. And I am sure there are many people who are just like me who have no idea what are you even intentional what. So could we just let's just go into it, right? Let's just go into it, right? What is that? What is intentional anatomical movement worship? What is that? Enlighten us. And you know, I'm not the smartest of bunches, so I need you to break this down into the simplest terms so I can grasp it, continue to grasp this concept, but for those who are out there can grasp it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in order for you to get to understand intentional anatomical movement, it's important for us to know the anatomical position. So, your body is created to be in a position that best receives information. What that position is standing erect, standing tall, facing forward, legs parallel to one another, feet facing forward, and your thumbs away from themselves. And you can definitely look that up. We live in an era full of information. So you guys are more than welcome to look into that, the anatomical position, right? And so once again, a little bit of my background with impersonal training in the fitness industry, I ran into yoga. And so someone throughout our church reached out to me and mentioned to me like, hey, yoga, it could be a little, the background, it observes different gods that are outside of the God that we served. And that didn't sit well with me all the way. And I had to search within myself and God. And I had to ask, like, okay, well, why would you bring me into something? And then someone that I trust, that I know you spoke to, is now telling me this is something that I should stay away from. But everything that God has created, there's also a counterfeit for it. Or there have been some things that have been, taken outside of God's design. So I was like, you know what? I understand that yoga has its practices, but there's no way that you're telling me that bending down and touching my toes is not of you. Me not being able to use my body in the functional movement that you designed me to be in, there's no way you're telling me that that's against you. So what do you want me to do? So God gave me the name intentional anatomical movement. Once again, when you look into the anatomical position, it shows how your body should just be standing erect and in a parallel position. But throughout our daily activity, we go through 5 basic movements of bending, twisting, pushing, pulling. There's things that we do, right? And sometimes we don't have that time to set aside and have that workout. We don't have the time to say, okay, sometimes it's hard to work it in. You got to make the time, right? That could be a little bit challenging to start a new routine. But if we just go throughout our daily activity, putting ourselves in postures in positions that best feed the anatomical position, imagine how much we can prevent the pains we can now stay away from a little bit longer, because now we're treating our knees with respect because we're moving in the alignment that best serves us, as opposed to me just bending down and hunching. I'm now bending over by the hips, by the waist, then I'm picking something up. So it's being intentional about the movement that I make throughout my daily life.
No, that's good. That's good. One thing that comes to mind is I know growing up, I'd be sitting in a chair and people tell me to sit up. Like, what do you mean sit up? But what's wrong with me slouching over, right? What's wrong with me, leaning over to the side in my conversation? Uh, and over the years, I understand that hey, that helps with your posture. It can prevent injuries and those things. And I think that's what you're trying to say as well. That posturing and right positioning can help to prevent some of these ailments that many of us feel physically, right? Because I don't know about y'all. Listen, when I hit 30, listen, everything started to hurt, right? And things start to hurt now in ways that I didn't think they would hurt and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yo, what do I even do to prevent myself from that? But you're saying, hey, some of that can be corrected. Some of that can be, reverse, through good posture, right? How I sit, even how I drive, how I walk, all of those things, right? Is that, is that what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you mentioned driving because that is a huge place where we'll end up being slunched over. We'll have poor posture, we'll lean, whatever. And so that should be a time where we're being erect, we're being aware. Imagine how much more you could pay attention to if your posture is in a certain position, as well as slunging over, like you were saying, it cuts off your air supply. Not having the proper posture, the one thing that we need to keep ourselves alive, our breath, can be cut off just by simply how we're sitting, just how
Mm,
we're leaning over. So if I now spend that time and I roll my shoulders back and I have a up posture and my chest is open to receive, now I can actually receive more oxygen to my brain to make
mhm,
wiser decisions. And like you
mhm,
said, prevent a lot of discomfort that we can feel as we age, because I don't believe that God created us to not enjoy as we develop and grow. So,
mhm. Mhm. No, that's good. That's good. So everybody, listen. This intentional anatomical movement is your ability. Now, this is my working definition, right? Let me know if I've got it right. It's really just this idea of being intentional in your posturing, in your alignments, in your movements, so that we're moving how God intended us to move. Right? We're moving in a way that is natural, not necessarily comfortable, because sometimes because of all of the times that we've been moving out of alignment, out of posture, right? We've developed that to be a sense of normalcy, whereas you're saying, no, no, we got to move in that way that we were created to move. Is that a
yes,
good definition?
intentionally putting your body in positions that best receive information.
That was so much easier, what you just said. That was okay.
Intentionally moving in the positions that best receive information. That's
Mm.
all. And so
Intentionally
that turns into
moving.
the acronym I am. Intentional anatomical movement turns into the acronym I am.
Oh, come on now. You need to be preaching tonight. Come on now. I love it. I love it. I love it. So help me understand this, right? Because one of the ways that we find ourselves moving a lot, right, is by way of music, right? Music and movement, right? We find ourselves every single week in a setting where, or quite regularly, not every single week, but quite daily, whether we're driving, we're listening to music, right? We're in a space of worship and the praise team is singing and the pianist is moving, the bass, the guitar, the drums, they're moving, and we feel a sense of movement that just our body just moves. I have my children, my daughter's almost 3, my son is 1, and they'll be listening to music or singing and they'll just start shaking and dancing. It's just natural, right? So tell me, how does that intersect, right, with this anatomical movement, right? Where do we see this connection? Like how does that music affect us in our movement? Does
Yeah.
it affect us positively, negatively? Like, where does that land? What is your perspective on that?
So I'm happy that you asked that. And we'll go deeper when we have our seminar, when we're able to meet and we actually go into some movement. Um, but the way that music impacts you, there's many different aspects to just sound. I like to tell people I love music, but that's only a fraction of what I love. I love sound and the ability of sound and the effects that it has on our body and even our mental state. Um, and so when you really think about what the emotions bring out of you when you're listening to certain music, it kind of, like you said, with your children, it just puts you in a place where you don't have another option but to move. Your body wants to
Mm,
move because it's affected, because it's hearing these different frequencies, because it's hearing these different sounds. It's wanting to release, it's wanting to build, it's wanting to strengthen, it's wanting to stretch, it's wanting to shake, it's wanting to release, it's wanting to receive. And I think that that is so vital because when you're listening to um, gospel music, you're not only hearing the rhythms, but now you're getting words or even any
mm,
mindful music. Now you're getting words to impact you. And we know how powerful words are. So, music within mental health, it's one of my greatest tools that I use to be able to bring me back to a centered mindset, a balanced state, an aligned space. But when we focus on the intentional anatomical movement, it moves into intentional anatomical worship, which that turns into the acronym of in awe, intentional anatomical worship. What that is when we are in a state of praise, when we're at Beacon Light and we're listening, and the praise and worship team is just getting it, and you're wanting to stand up or you're wanting to clap. Why is your body wanting to do that? What are the benefits that are happening to your physical body? Why am I wanting to stand up now? Why do I automatically go into the anatomical position? Yeah, look it up. Remember, look it up, search it up so you can understand. Be aware. Also, clapping. Why do I have an urge to clap? What is that doing to my body? Your hands are literally the extension of the brain. That's how we move in action, right? And so if your hands are the extension of your brain, imagine what clapping is doing to your mental state. One of the great tools that I use, I am a wellness and communication guide and a spiritual advocate. And one of the things that I do is I provide tools to those that need it to help them in between time. When they just need a little bit more encouragement, a little bit more push, I help them figure out how to do it for themselves in their own instinctual healing ways. And clapping is one of those things. And so one of the tools that we end up using, we'll go on YouTube and you can find audios of people just clapping, a round of applause, crowds just clapping for you. Listen to it. Clap for yourself. Oh my goodness, the encouragement that just floods you, the energy that just comes over you, the joy and the happiness and the gratitude that just goes over you. And that still goes into anatomical movement, intentional anatomical movement, that still goes into intentional anatomical worship. Because when you're praising the obedience that you have with your creator, you're worshiping. You're worshiping, you're showing gratitude, you're encouraging yourself to keep going because you know that there is more for you. And you can even start studying Romans 8. It'll tell you all about what you need to do with the body and how you can prevent illness from the law of sin and death. The law of sin and death, it has things waiting for us. We're like sheep just ready to be slaughtered. Let it tell us, But if you're in a state of worship, you're in a state of gratitude, which we were designed to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful because, I think of my own context, right? As someone who has to communicate the word every week, right? That in itself, right? And that's one thing. That's why I'm not preaching this month at all, because I need to reset and pour into me to get my mind, my health in order, so that I can be able to have the strength to finish the journey for this year. Um, but when I think about it, right, preaching in itself, pouring out spiritually, whether it's Bible studies week in and week out, visiting people, always having a word of encouragement, right, and praying for people, all of that takes so much out, right? And physical, just from the physical perspective, it's draining, right? And it's exhausting, right? And the thing is, going from Sunday to Friday having to do that, excuse me, by the time Saturday rolls around and now I got to stand before God's people, or better yet, by Friday when I have to prepare to stand in front of God's people, I'm spent. I don't have it. But one of the things that I have found to kind of recenter me in my own mental state has been music, right? I go through different seasons to where this will be the song of the season, and I write sermons to that song, right? There's a particular song that I know that will begin shifting the atmosphere, begin to remove distractions, right? And now my health is starting to mentally kind of come back into alignment. I found myself recently, probably for the last I would say the last 4, 5 months, 6 months now, I've been listening to, and you can YouTube this, but I've been listening to prophetic instrumental worship, and it's literally just worship strings, no lyrics at all, and it's kind of like this grandiose, not an orchestra, but it's just really this prophetic worship
Oh
where
yeah.
it's just really you just connect, and that's what I've been writing my sermons to.
Oh yeah.
That's what I have been
Kyle Lovett,
literally.
I believe, is someone that I listen to.
Yeah,
Kyle Lovett.
Kyle love it. Kyle love it. Yeah, like I listen to that because it mentally gets me to a space.
Yeah.
And here it is. Here's the crazy thing. Even if I'm not fully prepared with my notes to preach, and I shouldn't be admitting this on live, but even if I'm not
Right.
fully prepared, right? Even if I'm not prepared,
Yeah,
I need to make sure I'm prepared mentally. So I'll be
absolutely.
en route to church, listening to that, get into my office before I come out, listening to that, because it mentally gets me into space. And if I'm mentally there, what that means is I'm connected, right? And when I'm connected, all things will work out, right? I don't have to worry
Absolutely.
about it. Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, within Romans, it also mentions that we are of the spirit, we're not of the flesh. And sometimes the
Hmm.
flesh can weaken what the spirit is supposed to do, you
Ooh,
know?
come on now. Come
And
on
it's
now.
like, for me, when I read that, I said, what? The flesh can weaken what the spirit can
Mm-hmm.
do. Yeah, if you're not allowing the spirit to move,
Mm-hmm.
you're not allowing the spirit
Mm-hmm.
to move. And to be honest, whew, you were talking about sometimes you're exhausted before you're having to pour out. Just sometimes being in the spirit is physically exhausting.
Mm.
Being in the
Yes.
spirit, being moved and used by
Mm-hmm.
God can be spiritually, physically, emotionally exhausting. It
Mm-hmm.
can. So, what do you do to refill yourself? Or what can you do while you are being used in the spirit to put yourself in a less exhausting position, posture? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what can I do
Posture.
when God is
Yeah.
speaking to me? What can I do when
Mm-hmm.
God is using me to speak to others? And so, what we'll be focusing on this Sabbath is the dance that David did. What was this dance like? What was he doing? What are
Mm-hmm.
the postures of worship? What are they saying to our bodies? When we're
Mm-hmm.
kneeling, what is going on? How is that benefiting my physical body? Because once again, if you put away the misdeeds of the body, there's life within the spirit, but you have to put aside what you are
Mm-hmm.
doing to negatively impact the body.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can
Mm-hmm.
have more life and have more life abundantly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, that's so good. That's so good. I love it. I love it. Can you talk a little bit about, right? Because all of this music, movement, mental health, it's all connected, right? Because those are ways that we can receive, right? Can you talk a little bit about the importance of stretching? Right? The importance of stretching, right? Because there are times where I find myself and I'm like, man, I just feel tight or I feel stressed. And then, I just start, stretching a little bit, moving my hands out, touching my toes if I can, actually stretching. And then I begin to feel releases, right, of that tension. And I start to feel more connected, right? Can you talk a little bit about just stretching and appropriate stretching and movements and how that can benefit your health in these as we are intentionally in this anatomical movements?
Well, I will start off by saying this. Once again, we end up becoming so overwhelmed and consumed with our lives and our responsibilities that we trick ourselves into believing that we don't have the time to do these things. So when it comes to stretching, that's an instinctual healing tool. That's an instinctual healing process. An instinctual healing process is what is your body just naturally doing out of instinct? Sometimes the first thing that we do in the morning is we yawn and we stretch. Why? Why? What is that going? Why? Where am I stretching? Why am I opening up my jaw?
Mm,
Why am I yawning? Am I needing more oxygen to the brain? Why all of a sudden do I want to stretch out?
mm,
So when your body is naturally doing those things, become aware. Don't just go into it, just, oh, let me get it out of the way. No. Ooh, let me enjoy it. Take the time, feel your breath, connect with you, connect with yourself. When was the last time you actually listened to your breath?
mm,
So, show gratitude to it. That was something that God took out of himself and literally got down, molded, and took from and breathed into. We need to be listening to that a little bit more. That's the only thing that's keeping you alive right now, honey. So it's
mm,
like, and there's times where we yawn and we just keep it pushing. When honestly, it needs to be I take in, become so intentional with that movement that you're doing within yawning. And I say this to take this as a tool as well. When you yawn, what is it that you're wanting to inhale?
mm,
I take in the fullness of the day. Allow it to fill my lungs. Allow me to feel the cool breeze going through in my nose. Thank you for having clear sinuses. Thank you for my jaw to be able to unhinge and open up and release all the words that it is that you would want me to say, because I am created in the image of you. When I speak, my atmosphere and my world is created. Thank you for allowing me to have this time. As I exhale, I release all negative thoughts. That's intentional movement. And that's just from you yawning in the morning. And that was
Mm,
it. You spent worship yawning. So when you can have a mindset doing it like that, then it won't be as challenging to enjoy your stretching. Now you'll be more aware. When I wake up in the morning, you can even move your feet in the letters of who you want to pray for in the morning.
mhm,
You could simply just, oh my goodness, I'm just so grateful that I have all of my limbs, I have my fingers, I have my wrists. Something just simple, because sometimes we'll just keep it pushing so you can finish
mhm,
typing. No, take that time. Inhale. Say the breath of life. That's a powerful word.
mm,
An inhale, exhale. That's a powerful word you're saying right there. So, once again, if you become more aware of what's already happening, then
mhm,
create it to be intentional in the natural state that it's already in.
mm,
It'll be easier for you to go into. Yeah, it'll be
mhm.
easier. It'll be
I,
easier.
lo-
And
I
then all of a sudden you picked up a stretching routine. And you're like, how did this
right, right. Yeah, it's so interesting, man. That's so powerful. Like, I hope y'all are watching this and y'all are just finding how this is beneficial, just being in the right posture of movement and how that can impact your health. I hope y'all are getting this. If you have questions, please put them in the chat just about movements or whatever have you, whatever we've been talking about, because this is powerful stuff. And Rhonda, as we were talking, you were talking rather, and you're talking about the stretching and the breathing and how that all comes into alignment together, right, those movements of breathing, like, you know as we talk about God, right, and I'm gonna go around this road for a little bit more intentional when I'm saying we talk about God and we talk about the names of God, right. One of the names of God is Yahweh. Right, we call God Yahweh. Well, if I don't know if you know this, but in the Jewish culture, right, and tradition, when they would say the name Yahweh, right, Yahweh is not to be said with multiple syllables, right? It's to be said with your breath. So when you breathe in, it's Yah. So it's really a breath in and out. So in other words, Yahweh is really that the breath of God is actually you inhaling and exhaling Yahweh,
It's the
right?
first and
The
last name you'll say.
right,
First and
right,
last name you'll say.
right. And the reason why I say this, right, is because in stretching, right, as someone who was a former collegiate athlete and things, when I would stretch, and sometimes I would stretch and it's just too tight. You know what they would tell me? In order to continue to stretch, they tell you to breathe. Breathe in and out, inhale and exhale, and then you begin to stretch a little bit more. You begin to push a little bit further. And that's a word for somebody to know that, hey,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to just get pushed a little bit farther in your life, you just got to start breathing. You just got to
Mm.
start breathing in and out, because that's taking in God in and out and through you. And it's the breath of God that allows us to go a little bit further. It's the breath of God that allows us to now be able to stretch beyond our limits, to go out of the
Mm.
box that we've been
Take
talking
it to a
about,
new level.
take it to a new level. And so it's so powerful to understand that when we're talking about movements, right? The movements are one thing, but in order to move the movements, you got to also be breathing, right? You also got to be inhaling and exhaling and that oneness with God, right? I think that's why one of the reasons why God created the Sabbath in itself, for us to have time to breathe, right? 6 days you working, but that seventh day, now it's time to breathe.
Absolutely.
Inhale, exhale, reset your body, reset your mind. Where take off the lactic acid of the week, take off all of those things, and now find yourself in communion and connection with God, the Creator. So that's where
Okay.
my mind went off that. I'm in a state of
Absolutely.
just like mercy.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm happy that you went that route, because we do end up unintentionally unappreciating our breath
Mm,
because we are so anointed to have it. We have it in abundance that we overlook it until it's gone,
mm,
until it's
mercy,
gone,
mercy,
till it's
mercy.
gone. So actually, Carolyn Brown within Beacon Light, my mother, my heart, my love. She had God's Little Wings there throughout a praise dance group throughout Beacon Light, and they went all over Kansas City. And I remember when I joined God's Little Wings, that was something I noticed. I would dance so hard that I would hold my breath, and then when I was done, I was yawning, and I couldn't stop yawning. I'm like, why
Mm,
am I yawning so much? My body wasn't getting enough oxygen, even though I was doing the movement. I was powerful. I didn't have any oxygen. So
mm,
so it's very, very important to sit with your breath.
mhm,
I honestly start off my practices that way. An inhale, exhale. Absolutely. I start my practices standing still before I even go into what God wants me to do next. I say the name of God first. I
mm,
inhale, I exhale. I even hold it, to be honest. I
mhm,
even hold my breath at times. I want to hold it in. Sometimes what I inhale, sometimes I want to hold on to it just a little bit longer. Because I also know when I'm moving really fast and I have to hurry up and get it done and I gotta go, I've ended up holding my breath as well, much like when
mm,
I was dancing. But when you're not aware and you're so lost in what the world has going on, or you're so wrapped up into the flesh, you don't get a moment to sit and to see, when did I hold my breath today? Was I holding my breath? Why am I so tired? A lot of the times we're a lot more tired than what we're supposed to because we're shallow breathing. We're not even
mhm,
breathing from our diaphragm, which takes you back into music. Now, when you're listening to music and you're listening to these powerhouse singers and they're singing from their diaphragm, you need to breathe like that as well too. Breathing
mm,
like that, you'll have more of a fullness of breath, and then it will give you more
mm.
energy because a lot of us are just tired because we're not breathing, not because we're working
Mm.
too hard, because we're
Wow,
cutting off our air supply.
wow,
Yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah.
No, that's good. It makes me wonder, right, how much worship could be so much different if we were personally intentional in our movements and our postures, right? Because there's always this debate, right, of being having a spirit-filled worship versus a performance, uh, emotional act, right? There's always those battles, right? And well, there's a healthy bit of performance and emotionalism, but well, no, what if we had a spirit-led, spirit-filled worship experience, encounter, right? And I think what I'm hearing you also say, as an underlying theme, is that if we're intentional in our worship, right, intentional in our movements, in our postures, and how we receive, then the experience of worship would be elevated beyond our wildest imagination, right? Because emotionalism, right, performance, right, if that's the impact of worship on me, that's me depending on someone else to engineer those emotions and thoughts. Rather, if I'm intentional with me on the inside and my posturing and my alignment, that then allows God to engineer that worship and that experience inside of me, right? Which is a much healthier way to even worship, a much healthier way to be
It
connected to God.
removes you out of the picture. It takes you out of the picture. Some people are so within their head or they're so about their flesh that they look
Mhm.
at those around them and it stops them from praising however they're feeling.
Wow.
And however they're feeling is actually healing them. But
Mm.
because they're denying the feeling, now you're denying the healing.
Wow.
You're
Wow.
denying spirit to move. You're denying your
Wow.
obedience. You're denying submission. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, she's standing up, she's hollering, she's too loud. Oh, I don't want to stand up. Someone's going to look at me. You might need to stand up. You may have some pressure within your ankles. You're needing to get out. And it's needing
Mm.
you to maybe even jump a little bit to shake it out.
Wow.
Another thing, we end up holding a lot of our experiences within our bodies, within our organs. So it's not just that, oh, I had this experience when I was 5, 6, or 7. It's a full body experience. So it's locked in your liver. It's locked in your, especially the liver, Lord.
Oh,
It's locked
wow.
in your liver. It's locked in your joints. It's locked in your muscles. It's locked in your tendons, your ligaments, all of that. So if you have a need to clap, I'm going to clap because there's something in my hands that it's needing to be healed. Another
Mm,
thing that can be researched, we're in the day and time of unlimited information. Don't take my word for it, research it yourself. You have an aura, this little light of mine, right? It shines. There's a light that goes out from within you and it radiates out. It's called your bios field, right? Within that bios field, it's almost like the rings within, you cut a tree and you see the rings of a tree and you can kind of tell how old it is. The same is with your body, but you have this light that shines from you. And all the experiences, the greatly impactful ones and the not so nice impactful events, they're locked in this biosphere. And the more you
mm,
grow, the greater the ripples are. So you have to be the drop in your own ripple effect. And by shaking up those that are around you, those energies around you, you know how you could kind of be around somebody and you could feel their anxiousness and their worries? That's a frequency that they're putting out. So
mm.
sometimes I have to clap when I'm around somebody just to move your anxieties away from me. Or
Mercy,
if I'm in the
mercy.
car and maybe I'm lost and I don't know where I'm going, I have to praise my way through to get to the next destination.
Hmm.
And I literally have to clap because now I have thoughts of anxiety that's going into this biosphere, that's going into my environment around me, that's going into my experiences. I create my space through Christ Jesus. I create my
Hmm.
space with that consciousness. I create my space that God has designed me to be able to do. So if
Mm,
so, I have to be aware of that. I have to know, like, hey, I have to move this out. I got to speak this out. I got to listen to the music. I have to. And another tool that can be used while driving, and I'll give as much as I can on Saturday. I like to give as many tools as possible because wherever you may be now, the next time you listen to music that will also help you with your mental state, pick the sounds of the music apart because they're in there for a reason. The bass does something to that biosphere because it's a deeper sound. That's why the male voice is so important because it impacts in a different way. Deep
mm,
sounds impact in a different way. So if you can sit within the music and you try to find, I love me a good tenor. If you can sit there or a baritone and bass, you sit there and you listen to those different sounds, hear how they impact you. Where do you feel it within your body? Become so aware that you can pinpoint it within your body. Intentional anatomical movement and intentional anatomical worship is really about your awareness to what God has already designed you to be, hear, feel, and do.
mm. And that's awesome. That is awesome. Listen, everybody, I don't know about you, but I've been receiving, listen, we can probably talk for another hour or so, uh, plus, right? I'm just being generous, but listen, so if there's anything, because we're gonna wrap up, right? If there's anything that you want to leave us with, we talked about intentional anatomical movement, intentional anatomical worship, and our health. What do you want to leave us with, right? If there's a final plea that you have, what is it that you want us to get from this?
Study religiously Romans 8. You were designed to live, not die. Your brother, Jesus Christ, Yahshua, given to you as an example so you wouldn't have to experience that death. Now I need you to act in it. Find the misdeeds of the body that you're doing and erase it, put them aside so you may be able to live eternally, even on earth, until you decide so with
Hmm.
God.
Amen. Amen. I receive that. I receive that. We serve a God who created us from nothing, Adam. Nothing. He took this dust, he formulated us, but he was intentional. He says, I want the hands to move this way, fingers to go this way. I want this finger and pinky to be a little bit shorter than the others. For what reason? And I think it's the beauty of life, of just being in tune with our bodies and recognizing as well. This is something I feel like I just feel compelled to say that we were all created in the image of God, right? Genesis 1:26, right? So what that means is it doesn't matter the size, the shape, the height. the color, right? When you see yourself, you should see the reflection of God, right? God is that, right? And so I think it's important for us to understand that God created you intentionally. He created you like no other. Your fingerprints are different. He created us all differently, intentionally. And so, what I got from this is, hey, we need to move with that intentionality that He created us to move in. The legs were supposed to do this. They were supposed to be in this position for a reason, for us to stay connected, for us to breathe. So, listen, I'm just thankful for you, thankful for you just pouring out to us this evening. Listen, if you all were blessed by this, those who are tuned in right now, go ahead and just put it in the chat. I've been blessed. Um, sure, this may be something different, but this is out of the box. This is what we desire, right? So, Rhonda, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for just pouring into us tonight. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm excited to continue this journey of intentional anatomical movement and worship with you all.
Mm-mm. Listen, if you all want more of what we just discovered and then want to take this from the intellectual into the practical, actual movement, at our Community Health Day on July 29th, Rhonda's going to be there. She's going to lead out in a session on this. She talked about it, the dance of David. We really focus about it, and it's going to be a powerful workshop that you do not want to miss. You do not want to miss that. I promise you, you don't want to miss that. It is going to be a powerful time. You see some of the comments that are coming through that people saying they've been blessed. Listen, praise God for that. So, Ron, we just want to say thank you so much, and we
Thank
look
you.
forward to what you're going to do at our Community Health Day in just a few weeks.
All right. Keep loving on yourself.
All right, family, listen, everybody. We have been blessed on tonight. It was a powerful experience that we had, and we are just looking forward to our Community Health Day. So, listen, continue to stay locked in. We are going to continue on in our experience. We're going to have so many stuff coming on. So, just stay tuned for what we have going on. Listen, I love you. God bless you all. We'll be back on Sabbath in our worship experience. Next week, we have another health talk. It's going to be a powerful experience. God bless you all. God keep you all. Till next time. Peace.
Peace.